Welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for December 1st, 2020, first day of September. Item number 1, Mr. Reynolds, if you could call the roll.
Actually, our city clerk is here, and she can do it.
City clerk? All right.
Councilmember Lehman.
Say that again.
Councilmember Lehman.
You have to speak into this.
I don't know if your mic is...
Yeah, I don't think so. We can't hear you, Councilman. You're on mute, Councilman. All right, hang on, please.
Okay, Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
There we go.
Councilmember Contreras. Councilmember Brennan.
Link removed.
I don't think it's that.
Turn down.
Something with the. It's this though.
I think we need whiting yet, don't we?
Okay, here we go. All right, let's do that again. Councilmember Contreras,
He's on mute.
you're on mute. Angela, you're on mute.
Sorry, here.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here?
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Mayor Mars.
Here. Thank you for that and the technical difficulties. I think we got them all resolved now. Let's move ahead to item number 2. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving ahead then, item number 3, approval of the agenda. Any changes, Mr. Reynolds?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Okay. Councilors?
I make a motion to approve the agenda for September 1st, 2020.
Second.
I have a
Second.
motion by Councilor Brennan, a second by Councilor Contreras to approve the agenda as stated. Further discussion? Discussion? Discussion by voice vote. City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. The agenda has been approved. Moving ahead to item number 4, the consent agenda. Mr. Reynolds, any changes?
No, sir.
Excellent. Councilors? Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, there's been some questions on item 4B1 of why we couldn't delay this. And we all got the emails on the conversation, but it probably wouldn't hurt to state that publicly.
Okay, 4B1 has been resolved, but if you'd like to pull it, we can discuss it.
Okay.
Others, councilors? Councilor Lehman?
Move the consent agenda as modified.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second from Councilor Brennan. Thank you very much. Before, that's the modified consent with 4B1 removed. I have a motion and a second. Now we would read the modified consent agenda into the public record. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor Mars and members of council. These are the consent agenda items for September 1 of 2020. 4A1 approves the minutes from the August 18, 2020 meeting. 4A2 approves an amended purchasing policy as presented. 4A3 approves the application and grants a tobacco license to Shakopee Shell located at 312 First Avenue West. 4A4 approves the wine and Sunday on-sale liquor licenses for Sit and Sip LLC, which is located at 222 First Avenue East. 4C1 adopts resolution number R2020-TAC-0100, which confirms the final list of small business relief awards. And 4D1 approves the drainage and utility encroachment agreement for 1312 Meadow Court.
Mr. Reynolds, thank you very much. I have a motion and a second for a modified consent agenda. There would be no further discussion. By voice vote, City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. The modified consent agenda has passed. Thank you very much. We would move ahead then to item number 5, recognition of any involved citizen that would like to come forward and make a comment on an item not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Mr. Reynolds, have we received any comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Seeing none, then, we would move ahead to item number 6, business removed from consent. 4B1, Advantage Sports Group Ice Arena Agreement. And Councilor Lehman, you had questions?
Well, I just wanted to point out the conversation so that it was public. Apparently, there's 2 different users. One user is in arrears, I guess, and another user wants to utilize and rent our facility. We offered to move some equipment for one user that's in arrears to another location within the structure and still have their partnership if they work out the details. And that person is asking that we hold off on taking this action with the Advantage Sports Group.
Okay.
And apparently there's a time issue with us doing that. Obviously, I'm sure they want to capture their ice time and have their future plans laid out.
Okay.
So I just thought it would make sense to have a little overview of the conversation.
Well, not a problem, and I think that we all received those emails, and in touching base with staff today, it determined it was all resolved, and I'll leave it up to Jay to brief.
Mayor and council members, there was one customer who is one of our great customers that has been using a space, and this space is part of this agreement. And he got upset when he found out that his free use of the space might mean he had to move someplace else. And then he didn't continue communication. But this afternoon, he did return my call, and we had a conversation, and then he came in later this afternoon and apologized to staff for the way that went down. He has no concerns about this. This will benefit the community. It will tremendously benefit the ice arena in terms of revenues. This contract, the life of the contract, will be $735,885.99. And with the mandate that I've been given to activate our spaces and generate revenue and provide great experiences for our citizens in Shakopee, I think this agreement is indicative of being able to achieve just that.
Thank you. So it looks like the issue, obviously, more communication was needed and good resolution for all. Did you have any further questions at
No,
all?
sir. No, I can appreciate the explanation from Jay. I'll make the motion to approve the modification of the city's agreement with Advantage Sports Group LLC.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Lehman, a second by Councilor Contreras. Further Discussion? 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 All in favor, by voice vote, City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good work. Moving ahead then, I would entertain a motion to recess for our EDA meeting.
Motion to recess to our EDA meeting.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to recess for our EDA meeting. Further discussion? 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 By voice vote, City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. We stand in recess. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you and welcome to the September 1st, 2020 Shakopee Economic Development Authority meeting. Please make note of the roll call. Roll, please. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda of September 1st, 2020.
Mr. President, I second.
We have a motion by Brennan, second by Contreras to approve the agenda. Any other comments? Anything else? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lehman.
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
Commissioner Contreras.
Aye.
Commissioner Mars.
Aye.
President Whiting.
Aye. Next on the agenda is the consent business, which includes the EDA minutes. Any questions on the minutes? Mr. Mars, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'll offer the EDA minutes for August 5th, 2020.
A second.
A motion and a second by Brennan. Any discussion? Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lehman.
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
Commissioner Contreras.
Aye.
Commissioner Mars.
Aye.
President Whiting.
Aye. Next on the agenda is item 4A, a contract extension with MWF for Veerling property purchase. Mr. Kursky, Mr. Lehman, you have your hand up?
I do. Mr. President, where exactly is this property located?
Mr. Kursky, you want to continue?
Mr. President and board members, this is the parcel that's right across the street from Cherney next to the old mall. This is the last remaining parcel that has not been developed.
Anything else, Mr. Lehman?
Is that the west end one, Veerling Drive extended to 69 area?
Mr. President, board members, that's correct. It's adjacent
Okay.
to the old Kmart.
Mr. Kursky, you can continue.
So, Mr. President, Commissioners, this is a contract extension for MWF. The state, because of COVID, has extended the deadline for applications for affordable housing tax credits, and so they've asked for an extension so they can complete their financing and tax credit application to the state. It was supposed to have been, I believe, in October. The state moved it to December.
Questions, Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, so Mr. Kursky, I had some questions of staff here that you responded. So there was no spring award and it's just been pushed to this fall.
Mr. President, board members, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? What are the wishes of the committee? Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, I'll offer Resolution E 2020-011 for the First Amendment to the purchase agreement, granting up to 2 90-day extensions to MWF Properties for the acquisition of parcel located in West End Gateway.
Second.
We have a
Contreras.
motion on the floors by Mars, a second by Contreras. Any other discussion? Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lehman,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Contreras,
Aye.
Commissioner Mars,
Aye.
President Whiting.
Aye. Next on our agenda is item 4B, an amendment to the contract for private development and purchase agreement with Gone Companies for the Riverfront Bluff redevelopment. Mr. Kursky.
Mr. President, board members, so this amendment sets forth a number of items. One is they are assigning this to Shakopee Apartments, which is the LLC they've set up for the financing and development of this site that the Gone Company is still the general partner in. This also sets a minimum assessment. We've been waiting, running through the numbers because this project got delayed. So we've run some new numbers and they have a minimum assessment that ensures the city is repaid its portion and the developer has their note for repayment. And this also sets for a repayment of the demolition costs at the construction closing. They already have a requirement in the second agreement that they fund the 2 houses that we acquired to close out that project. So at the closing, the city will receive a check back, or the EDA will receive a check back for the cost of those houses, along with the cost of demolition.
Questions of staff? Mr. Mars.
Mr. President, so it sounds like we're getting very close to some action on these parcels, and later in the city council, we have an item before us that's asked for the award of the contracts for the abatement and demolition, correct?
Mr. President and board members, that's correct.
Okay.
The holdup has been with the current environment we're in. They had a lender in place. That lender had a significant exposure on a number of properties in the Twin Cities. They have a new lender who's ready to go and has given them a construction commitment. They're just winding down right now their final bids. They have awarded the general contract to Greystone Construction, so they are finishing out their final bids right now.
Okay. And the 2 houses, along with the demolition and the abatement, will be reimbursed directly to us at closing, not through the TIF. Is that correct?
Mr. President, board members, it's almost correct. So the abatement costs are actually repaid to the city through the agreement we currently have between DEED and the Met Council. So I think that's $4,000 or $5,000, and then the difference, which is the demolition cost, will come back from the developer at the closing.
Thank you.
Mr. Lehman, you had your hand up?
Mr. President, there was some discussion in the packet about the environmental permitting being the delay for the demolition. Is there an estimate on timeline for that permit?
Mr. President, board members, so they have applied for their state permit, and that should be issued sometime this week. Some of the materials are friable, so they're actually going to have to come back next week. There's a waiting period because they're friable. And then Fratelloni, if you approve that contract tonight, the buildings that don't have asbestos, they'll begin that either, they're going to mobilize at the end of this week or early next week. So by, I believe, September 15th is the last date for the state for approval on the friable asbestos. That one particular building will then come down on the 16th of September.
Any other questions? Discussion? What are the wishes? Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, with no further questions, then I would offer Resolution E 2020-010, approving the 3rd amendment to the contract for private development for the River Bluff redevelopment with Goggin Companies and assigning the agreements to Shakopee Apartments, LLC.
Mr. President, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Contreras. Any other questions, discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lehman,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Contreras,
Aye.
Commissioner Mars,
Aye.
President Whiting.
Aye. All right, item 5A is next, the EDA bill list. Is there any questions on the bill list? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6. Ms. Contreras?
Thank you, Mr. President. A motion to adjourn to Tuesday, September 15, 2020 at 7 p.m.
We have a motion on the floor,
Sec-
seconded by Brennan. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lehman,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Contreras,
Aye.
Commissioner Mars,
Aye.
President Whiting.
Aye, we stand adjourned.
We'll reconvene the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for the first day of September 2020. And we just completed our EDA meeting. And we will move ahead to 9A1, which is an election briefing. And our city clerk, Lori, will present. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. At your last meeting, it was asked that I bring a briefing and some updates about elections. Right now, there's a lot of confusion concerning mail-in balloting and absentee voting, and so I'm going to just do an explanation. We're going to talk about mail-in voting that does occur in some of our cities or townships in the state of Minnesota, but Scott County is not one of those. We'll talk about absentee mail-in voting in detail, in-person voting, direct voting, and then the polling locations and what you can expect on November 3rd when you vote at the polling location. So mail-in voting happens in some jurisdictions in Minnesota. They are for those that are not in the metro area and that have less, about 400 or less of registered voters. They do have those opportunities then to choose to have all their balloting done by mail. Obviously, Scott County is in the 7-county metro area, so we don't necessarily fall into that category. However, we do absentee in mail-in voting. So what that requires is that anybody can apply for an absentee ballot throughout the year. By going to mnvotes.org. That is the Minnesota Secretary of State site. And what happens from that point is those applications go to whatever county the voter lives in. So it would come to Scott County. Scott County holds those until the time of absentee voting begins. For the November election, that will be September 18th. And they will then start to process all those absentee applications and prepare the materials such as envelopes, the ballot. If a person is not a registered voter, they would send an application for them to register, and they would send it all in the mail with envelopes to mail it back to the county. Some of the things you would need to make sure you do if you choose to go this route is you need to read the instructions that the county sends with all that material, because there are a lot of steps that you need to pay attention to, and if those steps aren't followed, it's quite possible that your ballot would have to be spoiled, and they would have to try to resend you another ballot prior to the election. So it causes a little bit more stress, but they do send instructions, so read that carefully and follow them. You also will need to have it notarized. So it could be a registered voter from Minnesota, or it can be a notary. It doesn't matter, either one. And then you can mail it. But we have been working with the county on finding other ways for people to drop off their ballot, mail-in ballot, instead of throwing it into the mailbox. I know that there's been a lot of concern and fear about their ballots not getting counted and not back in time. So the county has decided, in conjunction with the cities and the townships, that we are going to set up locations for people to drop off their mail-in ballot. The first place would be the Scott County Public Works Building out on 282. The others would be Shakopee City Hall, Savage City Hall, Prior Lake City Hall, and Jordan City Hall. We are all the cities that are doing in-person absentee voting. So we will have a staff member from the county here at City Hall. You can come in with your mail-in ballot. They will check it in, make sure that it's all right, and then the voter will be able to put their mail-in ballot into a locked ballot box that the county will then
pick up twice a day, and take it so it can be processed at the county offices. The other places that they will be doing this is at the libraries at Belle Plaine, Elko, New Market, and New Prague. So it doesn't matter where you live in the county. If you happen to be by one of these locations, you can take your ballot in and put it in the mailbox or ballot box that they have available. So we're just trying to give people a lot more opportunities than just putting it into the mailbox. Right now, these are the times and dates. This will be starting on September 21st. And so the Scott County Public Works Office will be open Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30. They're adding 4 or 3 extra Saturdays. Generally by law, we only need to have absentee voting available the Saturday before the election. However, Scott County, with these concerns, have added 3 more Saturdays. So that'll be October 10th, 17th, and 24th. And they'll be open from 9 to 1 on those days. And then the final Saturday would be October 31st at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Shakopee City Hall will also be open Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30. And we will also be open as I go forward with absentee in person. Jordan City Hall, they will be open from 8:30 to 5. Monday through Friday, and then Belle Plaine, Elko, New Market, New Prague libraries will be open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. So you can drop your ballots, your mail-in ballots at any of those locations during those times. So absentee in-person voting is a little bit different in that you actually come to either Scott County's office or your city hall. And we help you with the process. Our city staff will be there. You will fill out an application. Once your application is filled out, staff will help to find out if you're a registered voter or not. If you're not, then they'll give you the form that you need to fill out to become a registered voter. Then they'll give you a ballot with envelopes, a secrecy ballot envelope and a registered voter or a new registration voter envelope. And it sounds complicated, but it's not, and we're there to help all the way through for any questions. You get to vote, we'll help you. You get your ballot into your envelopes, and then you get to put it in a locked ballot box. And like I said earlier, if you're a citizen of Prior Lake, Savage, or Jordan, you can go to their city halls, and they have the same opportunity of voting absentee in person. And then Scott County's Public Works Building. The other option before voters is it's called direct balloting. It's still the absentee in-person balloting process. However, the difference is instead of putting your ballot into envelopes, you actually get to put it right away into the tabulator. And this occurs 7 days prior to the November 3rd election. So between October 27th through November 2nd, you can come in, fill out an absentee ballot application, get your ballot, vote, and right away put it into a tabulator. So it saves you on the envelope process. We have 14 precincts here in the city of Shakopee. I just want to remind everybody that Precinct 2 changed locations prior to the August 11th election. So they are now meeting at the Pearson Elementary School or the early childhood location. And our favorite topic of the year is COVID. We are asking that everybody that comes and decides to vote at the polling location or even here at City Hall or any of the drop-offs to please wear a mask. All the pens, folders, booths, anything that comes in contact with voters and staff will be wiped down and cleaned on a regular basis throughout the day. We are going to enforce social distancing. We do ask that people would please listen to the direction of our election staff that will be in those polling locations. Know that we're not trying to control you. We're just trying to follow the guidelines that have been set before us. There will be hand sanitizers in each of the booths that voters can use, and we will have a hand sanitizer station by the exit of your polling location. One thing I do want to touch on before I move on is that a lot of people have been receiving absentee ballot applications from third parties in the mail. And it has caused a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration and misunderstanding. A lot of people believe that this is a ballot. It is not. It's a third-party organization just trying to encourage everybody to get out and vote. And so if you've already applied for an absentee ballot, the county has those ballot applications, and so you can call them and confirm that they've received it. If you're nervous and don't think you filled out one and haven't mailed it in, you can fill out that application and mail it in. However, the process will take longer because when you do it through the Secretary of State site, it automatically goes to the county that you live in. Where a third party, there's a little bit more of a delay in that process. So I would just encourage everybody to go to the Secretary of State site. And that's about all I have. If there's any questions, I'd be willing to answer.
Lori, thank you very much. A couple of my questions are that it certainly sounds like Scott County making it very easy and a lot of choices. Obviously with those direct or absentee, and make sure you follow the directions to a T, right? What about notary service? If I come in, does the city provide that service?
Yes, we have a number of people here, staff members that are notaries. So if you need somebody to witness your signature on a mail-in ballot envelope, then you can just bring it in. Don't sign it until you're here, but definitely we can do that.
Don't sign it before you get it notarized.
Yes.
That's a great point. And then my last question is, if I'm not a registered voter in this area, I need some additional documentation to fill out that application?
Well, definitely, if you're in the polling location. So to do it online is really simple. They'll send you a form, you fill out the form and send it back. But you have to have somebody to vouch or witness that new registration application. In the polling location, there are a number of items that you can bring with you on the day of election, because Minnesota is a state where you can register on the day of the election. And so if you have a valid Minnesota driver's license, that works perfectly as your ID. If you don't, if you are new and you've only lived in Minnesota 20 days and you haven't changed your driver's license, you can use your old driver's license as a photo ID, but then you need to bring some documentation with your name on it, with your current address on it. And it can be a utility bill, a rent statement, a mortgage statement. It doesn't have to be in paper form. It can actually be in digital form, so it can be on your phone. You can have a person in your neighborhood who is a registered voter in your precinct vouch for you if you've already established a relationship. So there are different ways, and if you come and you find out at the polling location that you're not registered and you don't have the proper documentation, you are able to leave, get that documentation, and come back and still register and vote. So we do everything we can to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity.
Thank you. Further questions? Councilor Brennan?
Are you still looking for election judges, and can they still apply for election judges and get training?
Yes, I am still looking for election judges, mayor and council members. As of last week, talking with my staff, we have all of a sudden had a surge of people interested, which is wonderful, because I really struggled to get enough election judges for the primary. And so I, at this time, need about 130 to 140 election judges for the November election. At the end of last week, I think we have 111 who have applied. However, in the last couple of days, I've probably received maybe 6 to 10 more applications. So I am taking applications, as many as people want to work, I will take them. I would rather use the citizens of our community as election judges than to have to recruit city staff. We will do that if we need to, though. But we are not going to start training until October, so people have a lot of time yet to apply. They can go on our city website under the city clerk's department, and there is a way to get to our application. All they need to do is fill it out, and then our staff will contact them when there's training set up and ready to go, and they can choose their training dates, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, great.
Counselor Lehman.
Mayor, I have 3 questions. The first question is mail-in absentee ballots. Do they need to be postmarked by a specific day?
They need to be postmarked by November 3rd, 2020.
Okay. Second question, are there observers during opening of mail-in or in-person absentee ballots?
Mayor and
When they
Councilman,
open them.
yeah, mail-in councilman, yes, there is an absentee ballot board that processes those ballots. So when the mail-in ballots come in, we make sure that they get accepted or received in our statewide system, and then a ballot board will take them and begin to process them. But we can't start processing absentee mail-in ballots until 7 days prior to the election. So starting October 27th, the county will start to process those and approve those and start running them in the tabulators before the election. So otherwise, they're under lock and key until then.
Okay. And then my last question, we talked about proof of identity at the actual precincts. Is there proof of identity required for absentee in-person balloting?
The only time that we are required to look at any ID is if they're a new registration. If you are already a registered voter, all you need to do is fill your application out for an absentee ballot because you're already in the system. If you're not in the system, then yes, the same requirements for in the polling location are required in applying for an absentee ballot in the in-person or even the mail-in.
All righty, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Whiting. I have a question. If I've requested my ballot from the Secretary of State and I don't receive the ballot, can I still go to the polls and vote after I've made that request?
Mayor and council members, yes, you may. The system that the state has is very efficient. And so if you have received a ballot and you've mailed it in and the county has received it, it marks it in the system so that if you go into the polling location on election day and our election judge pulls your name up on our iPad, it will state whether or not you voted absentee with a big red letters of AB. And so it's really nice because it allows us to prevent voter fraud to the best of our ability. So, but if you don't get a ballot, you've applied for an absentee ballot, it hasn't come in the mail, I would suggest prior to the election, call the county and ask them where it is so that they can help and make sure that they're processing them fast enough. Remember that there are a lot of people that are now starting to vote absentee. So it could take them a little while before they get your ballots and envelopes mailed out and processed and ready for you. However, you can come into City Hall here and vote absentee in person, or you can go to your polling location on election day.
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Councilor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. No question, just to say, Laurie, thank you so much for all the hard work. It's tons of work to try to put this together and to get all your election judges, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. I think the integrity of the Scott County process here on elections is very good. I served many years as an election judge. I encourage everybody to get involved and help and actually learn the system. Pretty good, solid system, and I do commend your work and the county's work on that. And this presentation has been good, good quality, good information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members.
You bet. Thank you all. Moving ahead then to 9B1, the award of contracts for abatement and demolition of the Riverfront Bluff apartment. And Michael's here to present. Thank you.
Mayor and council, this is, as it says, the award for contracts for abatement and demolition for Riverfront Bluff. The demolition contractor, some of you may remember, is Fratelloni, who also demolished the old city hall, so they have experience working here in Shakopee.
Questions of staff? This is a big step here as we move forward to get the area demoed and ready for development. We've all been kind of waiting for this, and questions? Okay. Seeing none then? Counselor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make a motion to approve resolution number R 2020-101, authorizing contract for the demolition and renovation of properties located in the river front bluff redevelopment area.
Remediation.
Remediation, thank you.
You're welcome.
Second.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second from Counselor Brennan. Further discussion? Discussion by voice vote. City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Thank you very much for that, and great to see this move along here. Thank you. Moving ahead then to 9B2, Jackson Township Annexation. Michael, welcome back.
Mayor and council, this is a follow-up to the orderly annexation agreement that the city signed with Jackson Township. The city staff and some members of council met with the township board about a month ago and explained kind of our next steps forward. So this is the agreed-upon annexation map. So we have areas A, B, C, D, E, and F. So we're contiguous in areas A and mostly B right now. So those areas could be annexed, and we're allowed to annex 250 acres a year without property owner request or approval. So the area that we're, of course, concentrating is in area A and B. And this is the first 250 acres. This is largely the Bregeman property. They're right up against 169. We've had a lot of interest in this property, and so we would propose this be the annexation for 2020. If council gives us the nod this evening, we will follow the process and send out certified letters to all of the property owners in this area. Interestingly enough, much of the Bregeman property is in Green Acres, so they're actually not paying very much in taxes right now, and that would be the same until it actually gets zoned and developed in the city. They'll still be paying a Green Acres levy. Then after that, for 2021, this is the remainder of that area for another 250 acres that we would be annexing in. The area off to the east there is the current Windermere project. That is already all in the city, and the new water tank site, the Spucka's buildings on that little narrow strip that you see just touches the blue line on the far east there. So they're gearing up to provide water in this area. The water tank should be done, I believe, sometime next year. And then the city is currently working on a sewer study and lift station analysis so that we can provide sewer to this area. We get probably one call a week from people looking to purchase property in this area. Right now, it's in the county, mostly in their planning reserve, so it can't be developed. but it is shown in the 2040 comp plan as mixed employment area largely, so you will see potentially some major employers in this area.
Okay. Questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions or maybe some thoughts. 500 acres over 2 years is a lot of ground. I guess I don't see that much land moving that fast. Ideally, we were moving from the east, 17th Avenue, to the west, and extending sewer services as parcels came in for annexation. Has that plan changed? Because now it looks like we're going to get all 500 within 2 years. And if somebody on the second piece wants to come in before the first piece, are we going to run utilities all the way through the first piece to the second piece?
So Mayor and Council, the plan would be, this is will take some time, so this will not annex, the first 250 acres will not actually annex into the city until 2021. We will then queue up the other 250 acres, so they would actually annex into the end of 2021 or early 2022. We will be providing sewer and water to the first 500 acre, or first 250 acres, but that's going to take some time. It's not like as soon as they annex into the city, they then will have city services. Much like Windermere and other areas, we will have some time to actually put that infrastructure in. This is queuing it up because Bergamins have had a significant amount of interest over the years, and we've had some major users that have looked there as recently as the past month. And then across the street in that other land to the west, there are a number of large users that have been looking there. So right now, it doesn't make any sense for them to do anything because it's not in the city of Shakopee, and they want to see this first 250 acres to move forward so that we can provide utility services to them.
Right, Mr. Mayor, can I continue?
Yes.
Mr. Brigham could seek annexation from the city today on that parcel if you wanted to. There's nothing to stop that from being approved. So if he has that desire, that would be done already. And I know there's some parcels out there that don't want to be annexed that are also included in this proposal. And it seems to me that we're gonna annex 500 acres, pay the township their lost revenue, which I believe the annexation agreement increases that per year by a set percentage. And I can't remember what that percentage was, 5% maybe per year. So we're actually going to be paying them, and I don't know where that money is going to come from. But then I just don't understand taking the second 250 until the first 250 is actually developed. So I'm really concerned about building roads and sewers all the way through both parcels and then waiting for the development to come because we're going to end up paying for all that infrastructure. And then we're going to pay to hold on to any assessments because there's nobody to assess. And we're going to carry an increased interest on those assessments. And when somebody does want to develop the property, the assessments and the interest is going to make it expensive to purchase and develop. Okay. And we also don't know what size of services we'd want to put in until we know what the end use is. So, the whole idea was that we would start at the east, and as properties developed, we would be able to move infrastructure along. And I'd hate to see a Rogers situation to where we put all this in place next year with everything that's happening and all the uncertainty. If we happen to have some kind of a crash, we're stuck on all this infrastructure until it comes back with interest cost. So I guess I'm not really sure what the end, how this is planned out. I didn't see it in the CIP either, So Mayor and Council, there's no requirement that
the second 250 acres. We're just queuing that up. We've let the township know so they're aware. The first 250 acres, our goal would be to just put the trunk sewer line in. All the roads and water lines, et cetera, would be at the developer's expense. And while it's true, there are some people that potentially out there did not want to annex in. We've met with the township board and everyone understood that we could do the 250 acres a year.
Right. And this is, you know, in the annexation agreement that we worked on, this is part of one of the clauses where the city can initiate. What's before us is only 250 acres. It has nothing to do with the second 250. You know, we met with the township, and unfortunately you weren't in attendance that day, but they were generally on board. Their concerns was more notification, which we're gonna beef up, and also we're gonna have another joint meeting in February. They did want a clause that would be prohibitive of landowner rights within that agreement. And I think that would be walking down a very treacherous path if we had an agreement that told a landowner that if they don't meet certain criteria, they can't come in under their own recognizance if they meet the criteria. So, but that's kind of a separate issue. And the township actually didn't have that many questions in regard to the first 250. And actually in all of Scott County, there, at least in the city's portion of it, there's just not a lot of land available. I mean, talking big acres, 10, 15, 20, 40 acres at a crack, that are serviceable. And when a developer comes and looks for those big parcels, they're just not available in Prior Lake, Savage, even in Shakopee, because some of our industrial park has been eaten up. I don't believe we have a parcel over 10 acres.
Last parcel, Mayor, is 25 acres.
Huh?
The last parcel the city has is 25 acres.
25, okay. So,
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Whiting.
Councilor Whiting?
Thank you. You know, I think this is important to start the ball rolling, and it kind of sets the stage to get some of the plans in place and at least that, and get that trunk line in for the sewer, at least planning. And it also puts it out there for developers to know that, you know, here's the next step in the city's progression. And you'll have to talk to that landowner if you want to go any further. But I think that, you know, having this out there and people know that this is our next step, I think that's a good plan.
Okay. Other questions of staff? Councilor Lehman?
I would just point out again that Brigham could petition the city right now for that parcel if he wanted to. We don't even need to do this to have that happen. He could do that on his own. Second, I did get the opportunity today to speak to a couple of the members of the township on this issue and got a little bit different of a overview from them, their concerns, but it is what it is.
Other questions of staff? Okay, seeing none.
Mayor,
Councilor Brennan?
make a motion to direct staff to proceed with the city-initiated annexation for 250 acres of land within Jackson Township.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councilmember Whiting. I'll second that.
I have a motion from Councilor Brennan, a second from Councilor Whiting. Further discussion? Discussion? Discussion by voice vote. City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Negative.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving forward to item number 9B3, transfer of property from the city of Shakopee to the city EDA. And Michael will present. Welcome back.
Mayor and council, so this is a title cleanup issue. So there was about 4 pages of title objections that Kennedy and Graven's working through with the construction lender and the Gong Company to clean up on this parcel. Most of them are pretty easy. This was the last piece. There's a small, so this is the parcel, and this upper corner is still in the city's name. It was never transferred over to the EDA. So upon recommendation of Kenny and Graven, who's our counsel on this, they recommend that we do a quitclaim deed from the city over to the EDA so that there will no longer be any title objections on this parcel.
Okay, so one last parcel that was missed before, or coming into this, from the city to the EDA. Questions of staff, Counselor Lehman?
Which parcel was it? Is there a way to make the pointer like highlight it?
It's the blue one.
It's the blue highlighted
Oh,
parcel,
okay.
council
Okay,
member.
I didn't see it on the last slide. Thank you.
Other questions of staff? This appears just to be some last cleanup aspect.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other questions of staff, Counselor Contreras?
I'd like to just make a motion to approve resolution number R 2020-105, transferring a parcel of land from the city of Shakopee to the Shakopee Economic Development Authority.
This is Councilmember Whiting. I'll second that.
I have a motion from Counselor Contreras, a second from Counselor Whiting. Further discussion on this transfer from the city to the EDA? Further discussion? Discussion by voice vote. City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you. Moving ahead then to 9B4, a request for qualifications for electrical management. Mr. Kursky, welcome.
Mayor and council, so this is an RFQ. As part of when you made the motion to put this on the ballot, we have plenty of skill set on the staff to handle the water side. While Mr. Reynolds has run a large gas utility, none of us have run an electrical utility. There was some discussion in the community that if the ballot measure were to pass, what are the city's plans to have someone in place to run the electric side of the utility? This is basically putting out a request for qualifications to firms to provide that key management person to run the utility day to day, and also have the skills to evaluate over the next 24 or more months the condition of the utility, what our condition the assets are in, and also if there are any engineering that needs to be done, they would have to provide that backup facility of providing those engineering requirements for any new users, and if there was any kind of catastrophe, whoever this is would be able to have to provide additional backup services to the community so that we would be checked and double checked to make sure the electric utility is protected.
Okay. Questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things in the RFP is to, after I believe it was 24 months possible selling the electrical side of the utility, it's misleading to say that there's going to be no employee loss when if the utility is sold off, there's no control of whether them employees stay or not. Most utilities, 60 to be exact, that have gone are actually run as a department through the city, and the other 60 are freestanding. So I guess the question is, why would we not follow one of them two models when it's the majority?
Mr. Reynolds?
Well, I think that's a great question, frankly, Councilor Lehman. Ultimately, that's a decision council will have to make. What we're basically saying is that in a 2-year time frame, we're going to get an idea as to what state the utility is in. We do know that it needs some update in multiple areas, but we also understand that it's going to take some time to figure all that out. And ultimately, the council, you know, our friends right across the river in Chaska run their own electric utility as part of a department. We can certainly do that here. It's not rocket science, and it can be done.
Okay.
But Mayor and Council, the goal is at the end of 2 years, you get to make that decision of what happens to the utility.
You will actually be educated at that point to understand all the implications of any decision you make for the future. Right now, you don't have that information.
Okay, further discussion? So, I have two. I tried to ask them in my questions to staff here a little bit, but, this was, this is like an RFP for someone that could, if the ballot question passes, to have someone come in and run the day-to-day operations of the management. Is that correct?
Mayor and Council, they currently have an electrical superintendent. This would be the person above that that would actually run the electrical utility on a day-to-day, report back to the city. And also, excuse me, as issues arise, whether it's a new user coming in and they need the calculations done for power loads, et cetera. But as Mr. Reynolds pointed out, I think there are some issues facing the utility. They have a need right now to relocate one substation and build a new substation. Whomever this is needs to evaluate and come back to the city council to say, here's the big picture, here's what needs to be replaced, here's what needs to be moved, here's how much it's going to cost the ratepayers, and here are solutions, opportunities, whatever it comes out, whether the city runs it, whether it gets sold, that's all up to the city council. But at least we'll have a very thorough analysis of what the state of the condition is of the utility.
And then, my other question is, to come in and run that, there's, you know, some investor-owned utilities, there's a co-op to the west of our community. We always talked about the MMUA. Would they submit for this? The state association?
Mayor and council is up to them. I mean, basically, we're going to put it out. Minnesota Valley Electric Cooperative they have some property in the West End that's in their service territory. That's why we provided you with the map. Xcel Energy is another potential user. They have about 50% of the city and most of the large power users today. And they also supply power to RAR. So those two both have a presence in the area. And for instance, in Eden Prairie, Minnesota Valley covers part of the city and Xcel covers the other part.
Further questions of staff? Further questions of staff? If not, thank you. So basically, I apologize. So basically, this is a RFP for daily management of the electric side of the utility if the ballot question were to be successful, and then an in-depth analysis over a period of time that would come to us for any further discussion.
Mayor and council, that's correct. So to highlight it, how is the utility run day to day by this person or organization? If there are any engineering needs, they need to have the capacity to work on that with the existing staff. And if there's any kind of catastrophic event, they need to be able to deploy the necessary resources, however they want to do that. And then long-term, over that 24 months, come back to the city with an evaluation of all the assets of the utility, where the issues are, and then it'll be up to council to make a decision on what they want to do.
Everybody
Mr. Mayor, this
clear?
is Councilmember Whiting.
Yes, Counselor.
I think we need to be prepared in case the voters decide to move this back into the city. So with that, I would make a motion to approve the distribution of a request for qualifications for an electrical management. I move its adoption.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion by Counselor Whiting, a second by Counselor Contreras. Further discussion? 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 By voice vote, City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Negative.
Councilmember Brennan. Please repeat that. Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you all very much. And moving ahead then to 10A, a review of the 2021 preliminary budget and levy. Mr. Reynolds.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Reinhardt comes up, I just want to make a few points. Just to put this historically in perspective, remember that in the past 5 years, we've really done a lot of work on this budget and, essentially have either made the impact minimal or in some cases, in some budget years, no impact at all. One of the hallmarks of having a growing city is that we're allowed to grow the overall pie that provides for the services that we all enjoy. It is important to recognize, once again, that this only is what we can control. We don't control property valuations, and we don't control what other taxing authorities do. So, oftentimes people will have complaints that my taxes have went up, and then when you do the analysis, it's not the city taxes that have went up, it are other taxes that went up, or it is that they just had their house reappraised and their land value went up, and therefore their taxes went up. We can't do anything about those particular pieces, but what we can do is ensure that this organization and this budget is fiscally sound and is designed to move us into the future in a very fiscally conservative manner. And that is something that those of you know me, that is one of the things that I always look for is conservative fiscal management. And we will continue to do that in the future. So Nate's going to go through the overall budget. Please, this is a workshop. If at any point you have any questions, stop us, let us know, and we'll address it. I'd rather do it that way. That way we can address it right when we're talking about the issue. Sometimes budgets can be confusing, and we want to make sure that the public understands and that we're speaking English so everybody else understands what we're talking about. Nate.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Nate Reinhardt, Finance Director for the city. And I echo what Administrator Reynolds said about asking questions as we go. That was kind of one of my nerves about trying to present this through the Zoom meeting, is not being able to answer questions, and I go through a lot of numbers, so feel free to jump in and ask questions as we go. So my first slide here, I can get it to work. There we go. I just wanted to start by describing overlying financial objectives within the budget. These would be maintaining a low and stable tax rate. Part of this is achieved through increased tax capacity from both current market growth and new property. In February 2020, the City Council adopted the 2020 to 24 strategic plan, which lays out the City Council's strategic priorities while serving as a broad guiding document for city staff. Those strategic priorities include financial stability, enhanced community strengths, effective public services, and communication. These are all key considerations when it comes to the 2021 budget. And then on the administrative side, just as in past budgets, we want to continue to be transparent, make decisions with the future in mind to ensure the city's ongoing ability to provide quality services at a reasonable price. The City Council has adopted budgets with minimal or no impact to residents in recent years. However, the city is experiencing budget pressures, most notably from increasing infrastructure costs and maintenance costs, as well as general personnel costs. Neither are unique to the city of Shakopee. Many local governments are also facing these pressures. Added this year, the COVID-19 pandemic leaves many unknowns in terms of future revenue collections, market values, and financial impacts to residents and business finances as we move forward. So with that being said, we are recommending a preliminary city levy of $21,042,800. This is an increase of $662,000 or 3.25% from last year. And the preliminary EDA levy of $350,000, which is identical to last year. The EDA does have statutory authority to issue up to a specific percentage of market value in the city. For 2021, that maximum levy would be $936,000, so we still have capacity within that levy. The preliminary levy is the maximum levy the city can levy. The final levy must be less than the preliminary levy. It cannot be any more. And just as a reference, when we talk about a 1% levy impact, whether it's an increase, decrease, it amounts to about $203,000 in additional revenue or additional funding. So it's nice to kind of keep that in mind when we talk about these percentages. The preliminary levy will reduce the city's tax rate from 33.97% to a 31.89%. For the medium value home, which is increasing at 6.3%, this equates to a 0.7% or $6 annual increase. Absent any change in that value, homeowners could expect a decrease of $49 or 6%. This does represent the fourth straight year that we've seen the city's tax rate decrease. And we continue to be one of the lowest tax communities in the metro.
What was that?
I can repeat that. This represents the fourth straight year that we have seen the city's tax rate decrease, and we continue to be one of the lowest tax communities in the metro. City does continue to see growth. Result of that new growth, we would be able to raise the levy by $420,000 or 2.1% before having any tax impact at all on existing properties. So quite a significant number when you think about the growth that we've seen in the past year. Kind of getting into specific areas of our budget. As mentioned, kind of on my first slide, we are seeing pressures on the personal cost side. We're seeing a net increase of $371,000. All three of our union contracts expire at the end of this year. Initial negotiations have begun with those unions. However, at this point, the impacts of those contracts and the timing of settling those contracts are yet to be determined. The current contract, so 2020, we have a 3% cost of living adjustment for the current year. For 2021, we have not built, we have built the assumption that the union and non-union wages will not receive a cost of living adjustment for 2021. The city is anticipating health insurance rates will increase by about, by 8% for 2021, which amounts to $122,000. This is following a 5% increase for 2020. And then just a reminder, the city set aside $600,000 at the end of 2017 to aid in the transition towards self-insurance fund for health insurance. Market conditions don't warrant a change to self-insurance at this point in time. However, will have the flexibility if in the future it does change. In August, the city filled an open human resource specialist position with an admin assistant. As part of that process, it was determined the duties of the admin assistant position could be redistributed to current staff. The 2021 budget proposed the elimination of that admin assistant position, which results in a net savings of $94,700. And then step increases for existing employees, workers' comp premium increases make up most of the remaining increase in the personal budget allocation for 2021. On the next slide here, it talks about internal rent charges. The city established internal service funds to account for equipment, buildings, park assets, and information technology, infrastructure, and equipment. The philosophy behind these funds is that they would take large swings up and down depending on what equipment was being replaced from year to year. So by charging rents back to departments on an annual basis, we're able to flatten that through the life cycle of the replacement of these equipments or buildings. And we accumulate the reserves in the internal service fund, and then that allows us to pay for the equipment when they come due. In 2018, we did take an in-depth analysis review of the equipment fund after purchasing a couple of fire trucks. These were purchased 20 years ago for about $350,000. Unfortunately, the replacement of these today would be about $600,000. So we have made an adjustment to change for replacement costs to future replacement costs. So we've added inflationary factors into equipment that have greater lives than 10 years. We're phasing this increase over a 4-year period, with 2021 being the third year of that 4-year phase-in period. That amounts to $67,000.
The increase in other equipment replacement costs added another 41,000. So a little over about 110,000 in total increase for internal rent charges. Other services and charges, we're actually seeing a net reduction of 159,800 from last year. This would include reductions of 90,500 in the community center related to advertising, training, and contractual cleaning services. And then also in 2020, we had a one-time expense of 130,000 to purchase Tyler building permit software, which won't carry forward to 2021. All other services and charges remain relatively flat. Departments may see an increase in one area, but have offset it in another area. So we've tried to be as reasonably as possible as keeping this, intern or other services and charges to a minimum. Overall, the city is anticipating a net decrease in non-property tax revenue sources of 14,600. So not really being impacted by, or really not seeing additional revenue sources besides property tax levy to kind of offset some of our operating costs. Within those revenues, there are two areas that we have adjusted from 2020. And they're also probably the two areas that are the most difficult to predict, which would be building permit revenues and recreational revenues. The city's building permits have been strong over the past few years with an influx of commercial and residential development. Development and coinciding building permits are expected to continue, but at a more moderate level than we've seen the last 2 or 3 years. The city is forecasting a $259,000 or a 14% decline in budgeted building permit revenue for 2021. Mainly as a result of a decrease in available developable properties within the city limits and more certain economy as we move forward. The community center and the ice arena revenues saw a year-over-year increase in revenues from 2018 to 2019, and up until the COVID-19 closures, would look like we're going to continue to grow in 2020. The 2021 budget projections are using the 2019 actual revenues as their baseline for forecasted budgeted amounts. So as a result, we're actually seeing a budgeted increase of 178,000 or 9.4% in recreational revenues, which is contradictory to what we're seeing this year, but we're basing it upon what we realized in 2019. The city's estimated market value is $6.57 billion. This is an increase of $520 million or 8.6% from last year. New construction accounts for $116 million, 22.2% of this increase. And again, we talked about how the new construction allows us to take the tax levy and spread it across a larger tax base, which ultimately reduces the burden on existing taxpayers. Apartment market value grew at the fastest rate with double-digit increases in both the new growth as well as the existing growth of market values of existing apartments. Since 2018, spurred by the growth of the city, we've seen estimated market value increase by 1.4 billion or 28% since 2018.
Amazing.
The city levies a flat dollar for taxes, which is spread against all taxable properties in proportion to their percentage of total tax capacity of the city. In these two charts, it shows residential represents 61.4% of the city's tax capacity. In comparison to the previous year, residential properties will pay 1.6% less of the total share of city property taxes in 2021. With apartment and commercial properties paying a proportionate percentage more. And why this is important is you're seeing the market values grow outside of residential faster than you're seeing residential grow, which is shifting some of that property tax burden to some of those property tax types, which is a benefit to households. This chart shows the city's tax capacity and rate over the past 15 years, including the 2021 preliminary levy. Again, the proposed levy will drop the city's tax rate from 33.97 to 31.89, so a decrease of a little over 2%, and it's our fourth consecutive year that we've seen a tax rate decrease. this slide shows the median value home. Kind of wanted to start by saying over 80% of the homes are seeing increase in their value between 0 and 10%. So a large grouping is between that 0 to 10% range. The value of the median value home has increased from 251 to 266,800 over the past year. And the median value home being, if you lined up all the properties from the lowest value to the highest value, it's the property right in the middle. So half the properties are below that median value home and half the properties are above that median value home. So the median value home saw an increase of 15,800 or 6.3%. This chart provides information on that median value home value and the city property taxes paid since 2016. The orange bar and the amounts on the left axis represent the median value home. The gray shaded area and the amounts on the right axis is the property tax paid on that median value home. Try to throw as much information into one chart as I could. But as you can see, since 2016, the median value home value has increased by 30.5%. Compared to just a 14.9% increase in property taxes paid. So your home value is growing faster than your property taxes.
So you said from 16 to 2021, that tax increase percentage was 14?
14.9.
And your home just skyrocketed. What was that?
30.5%.
30.5%. That's amazing.
And the other thing, and I should have bullet pointed on the slide, but it's also good information to know, when we talk about a 1% levy change, increase or decrease, on the median value home, that amounts to $9 annually. So wherever the levy ends up for every percentage, you're talking $9 on the median value home.
$9.
Here's the 2021 preliminary general fund budget. Budget incorporates the general fund portion of the preliminary tax levy, along with everything else we've discussed on the previous slides. The past few years, we've seen record building permit volume. With larger projects, we may see revenues collected one year, but still incur inspection costs for that project the following year. Last year, the City Council formally committed $1.58 million to be used in future years, which included $795,000 this year with the 2020 adopted budget to offset related operational costs. This preliminary budget utilizes $500,000 of those committed revenues for the 2021 budget. So a reduction from what we've used in the past from $795,000 to $500,000. So up until this point, I kind of discussed what we currently have in our budget. We wanted to provide a kind of an alternative for City Council to consider. At the August 5th, 2020 City Council meeting, Chief Coleman provided an update on the fire department staffing model that was implemented as a result of COVID-19. This included staffing with 4 part-time firefighters Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then a full day Saturday and Sunday. Modification resulted in a decrease in the average response time from 6.5 minutes to 1.5 minutes. Obviously, the shorter response time is essential for medicals, allows responders to reach a fire prior to the flashover point, and then resulting in safer conditions and increased property preservation. The schedule shifts have been well received by the part-time firefighters who can better plan their home life, which we hope will ultimately improve recruitment and retention as well. Staff is asking City Council consideration to continue the staffing model. This would increase personnel costs by $266,000, so the same amount we discussed on August 5th. However, as a result of the staffing model, we're recommending not replacing Rescue 2 fire truck, which is scheduled to be replaced in 2026 for $450,000. Through a combination of a reduction in equipment rent charges as a result of not replacing that truck, some operational adjustments, and the proportionate share allocated to the townships of the new cost. The net impact for 2021 would be $175,000 if supported by council. The preliminary levy would then be increased to 4.11%, which is a 0.86% increase.
Okay. Nate, let's just stop here and let's take the council members and just on fire alone, we can go back and have a discussion about the budget and so far, but I guess staff is looking, and we discussed this fire situation several weeks ago. They came back and dug into it a little bit. I think the number that we saw a couple weeks ago was, the bottom line was 211,000.
It was the 266 is
Yeah.
what was presented.
256?
266.
266. And they've worked pretty hard to come up with ideas to reduce that down to 175 for this additional fire coverage, which I think is a benefit to our community. But we'll just kind of go around the table here and see where everybody's temperature is on the fire staffing alternative. Counselor Whiting?
No, it's a big change from the model we've done forever. It's different, but you know, the value to our community and others is huge. You know, my former employer was over in Savage, and we had a fire in our baler, and the first truck on the scene was a Shakopee fire truck, and I didn't care whose name was on the truck. The important thing is that we had a quick response because my building was on fire. So I support this. I think it's a change in the model, but it does give the firefighters ability to plan their life, and so I think this is a change we're going to have to do.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I think it all comes down to priorities, and obviously fire is a public safety core service. Not only that, but it's coupled with the COVID issue and the response. But let me back up. You know, we need to be thinking about the unprecedented times that 2020 really is. I mean, I can give you a list of things that none of us have ever seen in our lifetime. The feds, the state, and the city are all still in a state of emergency, almost 7 months. We've got forbearance on rents, forbearance on mortgages and school loans. The government is keeping our businesses afloat with loans and money. Every man and woman got $1,200 stimulus, $500 for children, and there might be a second round if Congress works it out. If there's ever a time that this body needs to try to do whatever we can for those we serve, it's now. I'm not necessarily opposed to the fire department change. I think it makes sense from a couple of different aspects. But I think we need to dig a little deeper. I personally would like to see the park levy of $200,000 go away for 1 year. There is a lot of uncertainty out there, like Nate has said. And some of the projects that are slated for next year with park development fees, Memorial Park, Huber Park, maybe the marina, these are not things that absolutely have to happen. Huber Park and Memorial Park are totally functional in their current form. And I don't think waiting one year on them, considering all the uncertainty, I think it's actually prudent.
Okay.
That's, you know, I'm willing to make them trade-offs because I see one is more important, but if there's ever a time that we need to put the people we serve first, it's right now. I couldn't think of another time in my lifetime when we need to be thinking about households and businesses. And, you know, I point out, let me point out that last year, and well, every year, we know this, we all know this, that the lower value homes tend to get the higher value increases because of the demand. And that means the hardest hit are the lower values, and they're usually lower incomes, and they're the ones that need the help the most. So that's my position. So, you know, and if council members have other ideas, I would implore everybody to look at ideas like that. It's not like we're trying to stop a project or an infrastructure need right now or public safety. I'm all for our core services, absolutely. But I'm also trying to do what should be done for our constituents in the most unprecedented time I've seen in my lifetime.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Brennan, comments on the fire proposal?
Yep, thank you. I do support the changes that are presented here. I think a reduction of 4.5 minutes is very crucial for our community. And so I do support it.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Contreras on the fire?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, because of the uncertain, times we are living, to me, the reduction of time was one of the big things, and also knowing that our firefighters are all on board and they can schedule their lives and do what they have to do, because it is hard to just be on call. I totally understand, and I've seen it, so I am on board and I fully support this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you comment?
Yeah,
Mr. Reynolds?
just one comment. I'd just like to remind all of council and the public that we did, as part of looking at this, we recognized relatively quickly that we did not have a need for fire station number 3, that building that over $5 million facility really wasn't going to have a real impact when it came to people being on the scene. And, this is one of those silver linings of COVID, if you can call it such a thing. By implementing, we initially implemented this so we would have our fire department not all be exposed at one time. Obviously, when you're fighting a fire, social distancing doesn't exist. When you have people that you're trying to save in a car accident, there's no such thing as social distancing. So the fire department worked very hard to come up with a staffing model that we had no idea what the ultimate impact would be on times, but we did know it was going to keep our people safe, so we could ensure that we always had somebody that was going to be able to be there. Well, then as we started analyzing the data, it was pretty amazing when it came to the difference in time. And as Nate had pointed out, there were two different things that this really talks to. One, obviously, is the person that needs our help. The quicker we can get there, the better. And the other thing is we traditionally have had a problem with recruiting and keeping firefighters. And the reason is because 20 years ago, you might have 100 calls. These numbers aren't exact by any stretch of the imagination. But if you look at the number of calls we're doing now, it's clearly almost 6,000. That's the kind of change that has happened. So the impact that has on individual firefighters is the reasons why we lose firefighters. It has an incredible impact on their family life. So we know that this model allows them the opportunity to plan their lives a little better, which we really think is going to go a lot, really going to go to the distance when it comes to our ability to retain. So we took fire station number 3 off the table. It wasn't going to help at the end of the day. The silver lining of COVID presented us an opportunity. And so that's essentially why we really wanted to put it in front of you as the decision makers to make a determination. But to Councilor Lehman's point, we did take that over $5 million facility completely out, which had been in our CIP. It was the one thing when I was hired that still had yet to be completed, and now it's totally off the table.
I think on this fire thing, I was all on board for a new station out on our east end as well for coverage, and looking at that long-term expense of the building and then the equipment aspect of it. And then to do this, for a couple $100,000, and Counselor Lehman, when you speak about, thinking of the residents, I think this innovation that we've actually been forced to do over since March, has developed a new style, and certainly off the table, like Mr. Reynolds said, is a new fire station. This model can do it cheaper and better, and more efficiently. And so I think we are doing the right thing by our residents. Certainly if we don't do anything, what does that impact? We heard the fire chief, 5 minutes can make a big difference between the siding of your house that could be repaired and fixed, or your house being fully engulfed and having catastrophic aspects going on in your life moving forward. So I think we do meet the needs of our residents in an effective, very efficient way on this fire, and I support that. Councilor Lehman?
Yeah, I don't disagree that fire services is a priority services that cities should be putting out there. The point I'm making is a $5 million capital improvement on a building down the road doesn't help people now. Okay?
No.
That expense, the relief is needed in 21, which is almost here. And the uncertainty is in 21, when the state deficit of an almost $7 billion deficit now, and the state is already saying there's going to be across the board cuts in services, across the board tax increases. And a lot of the extra dollars for nice to have projects are probably going to be put on the back burner from the state. And we haven't seen what's going to happen at the federal level either, but they're spending as quick as they possibly can. 33% of the current national debt they spent in 6 months. So this is going to come home at some point.
Wow.
And it's going to come home. We're supporting and propping up businesses and households already. And it just seems to me that we need to put our people first. And I don't think it's asking a lot to remove the park thing for 1 year. And that buys time to see where everything's going to shake out next year, because we don't know, to be honest. Maybe we'll have that V recovery and everything's wonderful again. Maybe we crash. Who knows? But we need to be thinking either way. And Mr. Reynolds nailed it. Let's be conservative. To be conservative, you have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
All right. I think that we have enough consensus built on the fire aspect of the city levy.
And a reminder, this is just a workshop. This is our we're bringing this to you for your ideas, your concerns, your questions. And, I think it's important to recognize that there is a big difference between our operational funds and our infrastructure funds, for lack of a better term. And essentially what we're really addressing here is we're taking a look at the general fund, which is mainly operational funding. And frankly, that's people. The majority of your general fund is going to be somehow related to people. We made the decision as we were putting this budget together to go ahead and get rid of one position as we were looking at how we could bring this budget down to a level that frankly was viable. If we didn't have some of the reductions that are already put into this particular budget, obviously it would have been a lot higher. That doesn't mean that we have all the answers, and if council has something that they see that they want us to take a better look at, all we are looking at right now is, Mr. Reinhardt has stated, is this is the maximum that the levy can be. And then we can go back if you have some areas where you want us to look at and try to brainstorm some new ideas, you know, I'm more than willing to do that. But
Okay. I think that what Counselor Lehman was getting at was more, you know, bigger projects that may be in the CIP compared to the operational levy, but,
No, it was actually the operational levy, the 200,000 park development, 1 year.
all right.
That
Do you want,
that would offset the fire department cost for 1 year, and then we'd have more certainty next year, hopefully.
okay,
that's certainly an option, and it's something that can be done.
let's finish up. Nate has a couple more slides,
Yep,
and then we'll come back.
Yep, just a couple more slides and then we can continue with discussion. And none of them are really that lengthy of slides here, the last couple here. So this slide I actually got from one of my peer cities, so it's not even one that I had put together on my own, but I did provide Shakopee's information on there. So they did a survey of metro cities on their estimated preliminary tax levy increase for 2021. I don't necessarily take too much away from some of these comparison charts because there's such unique circumstances depending on which city you're at. But nonetheless, it provides a comparison to show what other cities are thinking for their preliminary levies for 2021. And of course, it's only the cities that responded that were included in the survey, but you can see Shakopee is near the bottom of this chart. I also didn't pick the colors, so. On this slide here, just wanted to reference the calendar. We will come back to City Council with a proposed preliminary levy on 9/15, so September 15th. As well as approval of the final 2021 and through 2025 CIP. Again, at that point in time, we're unable to increase the levy, but it can be decreased. Proposed property tax notices will be sent by the county in November, and we'll ask for final council approval in December. And just a couple of questions that I had for council to consider, and one of them has already has been discussed, but any input that you may have on the proposed preliminary levy and budget, and then consideration of the current fire staffing model.
All right, well, I think on question number 2, I think we've built consensus on that, and we'll come back to question number 1, but I had a note here, and I was remiss that I didn't do it at the beginning of this budget levy discussion, but I know that we updated our mission statement and our vision statement and our key strategies here as part of our strategy sessions here over the winter, but it caught my eye that our mission statement now reads, our mission is to deliver high-quality services essential to maintaining a safe, sustainable community. We commit to doing this cost-effectively with integrity and transparency, and a couple of those key words, because I know this budget has gone through with a fine-tooth comb by staff every year, and I think they've generally done a good job. We benefit for some growth. But when you show that green slide of our proposed levy, and I know everything's not set, but we're not at the high end, we're certainly not at the low end, we're in the bottom third. I think that's been going on for 3-4 years consecutively, so I'm thankful for that. If we opened up the discussion on the park levy aspect, or made it a push, one of my aspects that I would ask is, if we're adding the fire and we're asking for something else, I understand I read about the positive impact of adding the fire, but what would be the impacts of taking the park aspect out?
Well, I believe that that's referring to what would happen in 2022 in regards to the bond. Is that correct, Nate?
Well, so we have, let me see if I can find a slide on here. I think what we're referring to on here is the Out of the levy, the 200,000 park development levy.
Yeah,
So that money would be going to
Okay.
the
Gotcha.
park development fees well, where our park dedication fees are going, that's where that money is going to develop future parks.
And I'll just say, Councilor Lehman, I don't have an issue with that. I mean, as your administrator, I have no issue with looking at that number and making a determination as to whether or not that moves forward. I think that if you're going to look at something, that would be something to look at.
okay. Others? Questions
Mayor.
on that?
Mayor,
Counselor Lehman?
I don't believe that would have any long-term impact on the overall park development plans. I think it's just a one-year removal, offsetting the fire department change. Then next year, the fire department change costs will already be built into the budget for 2022. And so the 200 coming back would not be in addition to the 175 for the fire, because like I said, that's going to already be built into the 22 budget from 21. And the 200,000 1 year is not going to make or break any park project that's on the docket.
And the reality is we added that levy when times were good and certain. And so again, I would support that.
Others? Counselor Brennan?
I would not want to stop the looking at ways to develop the parks through grants and other means, because I think parks are really important to the community right now, especially in this time of pandemic. I know personally I spend a lot of times at the park, and I think that we shouldn't just shut it down at looking at development and looking at ways that we can improve the parks.
Counselor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just have to echo exactly what Council Member Brennan said. At these times where that's what we're using the parks. But again, I'm also seeing what Council Member Lehman is saying, that it would, it shouldn't hopefully break or, make any of these projects. So we should still be able to continue on. I have been part, recently of doing park engagement, community engagements, and I've seen how our community wants these parks. So it's kind, I am, and again, with Councilmember Brennan said, let's look for other ways so we can continue grants, whatever is needed.
Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could also see a value in a parks area where my concern is, as long as we do it as a one-time only, we have this master plan out there, and of course, we're never going to get to it in 1 year anyway. But if it gets delayed a little bit, I think this would be the time to do it. But I don't want to lose sight of the goal in the end.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure out my question here about this balancing act trade-off on how does that affect the parks? Maybe that's a question.
Well, it'll have some impact, but we just started this levy last year, correct, Nate?
That is correct.
So, when we look at our long-range plans, they're just that, they're long-range plans. And yes, I understand that people would like to move things forward and get things done, but we truly have experienced times like none other. And, if you have concern about the life-saving model, I'll call it, with the fire department, we know what the impact is there. If the concern is that we need to adjust other areas, That 200,000 is exactly what should be adjusted. It was just implemented last year. It's not an overly large amount of money. What does a tot lot cost us, Michael? 180? $180,000. So it's essentially a tot lot.
Okay.
So, I mean, that kind of puts it in perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can maybe add a little bit to it too, just because we went through the capital improvement plan not too long ago, and we'll be coming back with it on September 15th. I think the thought behind the 200,000 levy last year was that we knew that with the Parks Master Plan and coming up into future years, that we would need funding in order to be able to do those. So, I mean, the thought was, let's start, preparing to do these projects. When you look at the projections, it was, I think, 2022 when we started to dip a little bit below. So we knew that we already had to make some modifications to that plan. So this would just, further, we have to reimagine our plans as we move forward already. So
Right. Well, I know that we're looking at the park at Stagecoach. I know we just did Holmes Park. We just started the process of community engagement for another park the other day. During this pandemic, the positivity aspect of parks have been, and trails have almost never been higher. And I think we're fortunate in our community to have parks and trails that are engaging people. I live along the Veerling Greenway Park, as we're calling it now, and as I work from home, I look out over that every day, and certainly wish I had 50 cents for every kid on a bike or walking by, because it gets used. That's great. I certainly would look at a one year aspect of this, and understanding of how important it will be in the future to move forward. And maybe that would be just a short-term trade-off aspect for now, to get the fire department on the book. So, Councilor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd point out that removing that 200,000 for 1 year will not change any of the existing parks or trails that we currently have. And it probably won't change any that we're planning on putting in the future. The whole concept of this park development levy was a long-term revenue stream over the long term. After 5 years, you got $1 million, 10 years, you got $2 million, unless it's raised by future councils. And that was for the long-term plans of the park master plan to help offset from the park dedication fund for them plans. So this is not going to have any impact over the next couple of years, and it won't affect anything that we currently have.
Okay. Well, I know that you weren't, you didn't support the park and trail master plan, and
well, it's still adopted, correct?
it did get adopted, you're correct.
So we still have an adopted plan, whether I supported it or not. I'm not looking out 20 years right now. I'm actually talking about this for next year, because if we have a downturn, a substantial downturn because of this COVID and the debt at all levels of government, that 200,000 is going to be the very least of your concerns. You're going to have a lot bigger fish to deal with in a lot of different areas, including the capital improvement. So
Yep.
I wouldn't be too leery of this change. And you know what? If you got a quick V recovery and things are gangbusters next year, and hopefully I'm wrong about a downturn, that would be a good time to be wrong, and you have 500 acres developed in 2 years out in a township, it's a non-issue. You could probably raise that twice that in 1 year and get it all back. So the cards are not really in our hands. The uncertainty is not ours. It's not our fault. It's not something we can control, but it is prudent to kick back and say, okay, we recognize these issues. Let's pause just for a second, which is really what it is in time, and see where this goes.
Okay,
That's all I'm asking.
very well. Any other comments on this? Any other comments on this? It appears we have enough direction on the park levy for a 1-year sabbatical and discuss it next year. All right? Is that a good enough direction?
I believe so, yeah, I'll bring back, based on this discussion, I'll bring back a preliminary budget as,
Okay. That would end our discussion on our preliminary budget and levy. They're gonna fine tune the numbers and bring it back for the proposed maximum levy, I think is up next. And then we'll see the CIP and we'll move forward down this path. Thank you all. Thanks, Nate. Great discussion. Moving ahead then to 11A, which is the city bill list in front of us for our review. Any questions on that? Seeing none, we would move ahead to 11B1, Liaison Administration Report. Counselor Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week was a MVTA meeting. I don't have the details in front of me. We did talk about the CARES Act and an update on the upgrade to the buses with the AVL system that kind of monitors all the systems on the buses. That with COVID kind of slowed down quite a bit. Then there's also the Met Council seems to be eyeing up the red line with the MBTA runs very successfully, and since it's a successful line, it seems the MBTA or Met Council wants a hold of that. So we're working with the Met Council representatives on that route that they seem to want to grab. But that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Counselor Lehman.
I don't have any report, but we are gonna do a ribbon cutting for 4178, 169, 169 Corridor Coalition on 11th, I think it was, of September.
September 11th. I think
Yeah.
at 10 or 10:30.
Yeah, spacing is required and so are masks. I will be there for that function. Good project. Should help the at grade. Next one is 282, the deadly intersection in Jordan.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Brennan?
She's on mute. She's on
Counselor
mute.
Brennan, you're on mute. We'll come back. Counselor Contreras?
There she goes.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry, I was waiting to see if Counselor Brennan was ready.
She's ready now, so I apologize. Counselor Brennan?
Okay. I didn't have any meetings. There is one tomorrow, which is a special meeting for the Shakopee Public Utilities. And at that time, we will be reviewing the term sheet for repayment plan and separation agreement with the utilities manager. And so we'll be discussing that. And then on Monday, we have our regular meeting and we'll be having the final determination on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Counselor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. For the equity team, the team recorded our second training video on equity basics. Should be out soon. Also, we have been working on our first community engagement event, also happening by the end of the month. So please stay tuned for that. School board, let's see. So Monday, August 24th at the Shakopee School Board Business Meeting, the back to school learning model plans were made official and finalized. The school board review the most recent available data from the Minnesota Department of Health, which included a 14-day COVID-19 case rate of 24.83 in Scott County as reported on August 20th. Also advice from the district pandemic response advisory team. Also overall district readiness, and opening options for the 2021 school year. So based upon district review with no alternative motions presented, the school board decided that students enrolled in the Shakopee IHD program will start the 2021 school year in the hybrid or the H portion of the model in accordance to a table that they have, which is the number of cases over 14 days per 10,000 persons by county, which is 20 to 30, 20 to less than 30 would be, the model would be hybrid for all students. And then the district communications have also sent out students A-B rotations, and all that went out through email. And then coffee with the superintendent, there's other questions. I know there's tons of questions for different things that are happening. September 17, 2020 from 7 to 8:30 a.m. The location is still to be determined. But again, for more information, I invite you to visit the shakopee.k12.mn.us website. And then for the SDA, no update. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Lots
you.
of stuff.
Thank
Wow.
you. For my mayor report, I've met with staff over the last couple of weeks. Also, I threw out the first pitch at the Minnesota State Class B tournament Friday the 21st. They had a pretty good tournament over 2 weekends. I'm waiting on final attendance numbers, so that is great. They had it all spread out. It didn't feel crowded, plenty of distancing, that was great. Also last week was, along with Chief Tate, interviewed by the League of Minnesota Cities in regard to our City of Excellent Award for our credit card ordinance that, my gosh, is getting a lot of attention, so that is fantastic. That is my mayor report, and thank you very much. Our pool is now open for day users. Thank you very much, city staff, for that, and hope it's moving well here as it moves forward. Thank you. Mr. Reynolds.
The only thing I have for council is that tomorrow night till early of September 9th, I will be out of the area and unreachable. Mr. Burkett is here, and if you have any issues, please get to him. I may or may not have moments of cell service. My hope is not, but if I do, I will check my messages and get back to you. If not, I will be back early morning on the 9th.
All right. Item number 12, other business. Is there any other business before this board? Councilor Lehman.
Mr. Mayor, what's it gonna cost me to get my council packet organized like it used to be?
$100,000.
Okay, well, let's start that process, I guess. I'll write it off on my taxes.
Well, that was.
I would be happy with just a blank page in between each agenda item.
We're gonna try.
I did. I had to do mine. It was hard.
You know,
We're all dealing with it, but by eliminating that position, we were able to save almost $100,000, and so we will continue to try to fine tune the process.
Well, Mayor, some of mine are, if I'm reading an item, the next item is woven into the back side of the first item. And it makes it very difficult to separate the items and find what you're looking for during the meeting, like tonight, when I actually have to look for the wrong item to find the right item and look on the back. So whatever solution, I don't know what the solution is, but currently it's not workable for me. So we need to figure out something.
well, I think we're learning to innovate and adapt. This is our first time. We did have a discussion with staff about it. We'll see what further innovations we can make. But it's certainly, you know, kind of the way it is for now, and we'll wait and see what staff comes up over the next month or so.
I will once again put a plug for online packets where you can actually go online and pick up exactly what you're looking for. It's real easy to see through there, and matter of fact, I think I may be bringing a computer here so I can do that. But we're going to continue to look at the process. It's unyieldy for all of us, but again, we saved $100,000 at the end of the day, but we'll continue to work on it.
Just remember, we used to get around our community in horses, and now we're driving cars. So it does take a little time to get used to, but we'll see what staff can come up with. Thank you very much for that. Any other business before this board? If not, motion to, Counselor Brennan?
I make a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, September 15th at 7:00 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Discussion by voice vote. City Clerk?
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned at 9:05.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.